Hello, everyone, and good evening. Thank you so much for joining me if you made it here. I really appreciate it. It's kind of late, but I really did want to get this video out, so I decided to do this as a live stream instead. As a lot of you know, I've been working on uncovering the Eckankar cult since 2022. I came across it when I was looking into Scientology, actually, and Paul Twitchell was a Scientologist and was quite well known for giving people lessons in outer body experiences, or as the people in Eckankar call it, soul travel. And he became pretty popular with giving other Scientologists the lesson of soul travel. Hello, Nev, good to see you. And he seemed to have been connected to Scientology between the years of 1950 and about 1961. So even while he was building Eckankar. And I have been working on a document since I have been trying to prove that Eckankar is not only a religion, but is actually a cult and was made with the very makings of what makes a cult, like revisionist history, lots of plagiarism, lots of lies, totalitarian ego. Just there's a lot there, not to mention, you know, how much it controls its members and some of the survivor stories that have come out and whatnot. So what I've been doing is compiling it all along with the work of David C. Lane and the other scholars that really spoke out about Eckankar, and kind of putting it into one big giant document, if you will. One big giant book on Eckankar, what it is, what makes it a cult, and etc. And as I've been deep diving it out here on YouTube, I have told you all about Paul Twitchell, pretty much. I'm sure there's some things that you'll learn in the book that you didn't know, but I've also really deep dove Harold Klemp, which is the current living Eckmaster, and we've read a lot of his books. I've done some dramatic readings of most of the readings that they have available that you can basically get in the library. So we've been kind of going through those. But one person that's always remained a very big mystery in the history of Eckankar is the alleged 972nd living Eckmaster, Darwin Gross. And so I just wanted to come on here and tell you the story of Darwin Gross. I'm going to be using parts of my book and other bits of research to let you know who Darwin Gross is. So this is Eckankar, Darwin Gross, a story no longer told. So for those that don't know, what is Eckankar? Eckankar is a modern spiritual movement founded in 1965 by Paul Twitchell. It blends elements from various traditions, especially Sikhism, Hinduism, and Christianity, into a unique path focused on personal spiritual experiences. Central practices include, and we've deep dove all of these: soul travel, conscious exploration of spiritual realms beyond the physical world. This is like having out of body experiences. Hue chanting, which I've shown you guys a lot of. You know, they go hue, and it's like their chant, a sacred sound used to connect with divine love and inner guidance. This is, of course, how they explain it. Dream work. Dreams are seen as gateways to spiritual insight. Oftentimes, people will claim that the living Eckmaster came to visit them in their dreams. It's interesting. Direct experience. Followers, called Eckists, seek direct contact with the light and sound of God. The movement teaches that each person is soul, a divine spark, and can achieve spiritual liberation in this lifetime. And a lot of the way that they view the world is very, very similar to how Scientologists view the world. Anything bad that you're going through is because of something that you must have messed up in a past life. They are all about karma. It is one of the major reasons why I decided to change my name to Queen of Karma. And they are all about going through rebirth. So each lifetime that you live is supposed to teach you lessons and get you closer to being in the afterlife. Once you achieve getting close to God, becoming a co-worker with God, which I guess means that you live a perfect life. It's, a little iffy, of course, on what it means to finally achieve this. But once you do that and you pass through all the soul planes and work your way up their MLM-like system, then apparently you do not come back to life after you die. So you've achieved it and you get to go and live life in the afterlife. It's what they believe. Darwin Gross became the 972nd living Eckmaster in 1971, following the death of Paul Twitchell. When Paul created Eckankar, he alleged there were several Eckmasters before him, including Rebazar Tars, who I've told you a lot about already, and therefore there was a long line of alleged living Eckmasters before him. But according to records searched by David C. Lane, none of these Eckmasters existed, and Paul is in fact the first ever living Eckmaster, since he is the one who invented Eckankar, plagiarizing it from other religious writings. This means that Darwin Gross was in fact the second living Eckmaster of Eckankar. And we've already discussed all of the plagiarism and how Paul Twitchell basically rewrote the work of people in St. Matt and Radha Swami and other religions, even some Christianity plagiarized. And therefore, if there were these alleged living Eckmasters before him, they were probably a mixture of real people that were his gurus when he was in past religions, like Radha Swami and St. Matt and all that. So that's what we've kind of decided on, because there is no record of these people existing. And it's kind of obvious when you go through all of the writing. So who is Darwin Gross? How did he take over Eckankar as living Eckmaster? What happened between he and Harold Klemp? The following is the untold story of Darwin Gross. So now I'm going to use parts of my book to tell it to you. On September 16th, 1971, Paul arrived in Cincinnati, Ohio, to appear at an Eck seminar. The story of Paul's death goes as follows. At 1 a.m., the early morning hours of September 17th, a female follower felt a sudden urge to go to Paul's room. And of course, afterwards, this was like, oh, he was obviously calling to you. Like, it was meant to be. You were meant to go there. And, Upon arrival, she was greeted by Paul at the door, and he suddenly collapsed into her arms. He was rushed to the hospital and pronounced dead on arrival. Paul Twitchell died September 17, 1971, at the age of either 61 or 62, depending on which of his conflicting birth dates one accepts. The circumstances of his death have long been shrouded in ambiguity, and for many followers and critics alike, it marked the beginning of a new chapter of speculation and myth-making. One of the first points of controversy was the lack of transparency surrounding the cause of death. Official records were sparse, and no detailed public explanation was offered by Eckankar leadership at the time. The silence led to rumors and theories ranging from natural causes to more conspiratorial suggestions, though no credible evidence has ever supported foul play. There was talking, some people accused Darwin Gross of maybe doing something, but like he wasn't there. Anyway, adding to the confusion, Paul's wife, Gail Twitchell, reportedly gave yet another birthday, October 22nd, 1922, to the medical examiner, which contradicted earlier documents that listed 1908, 1909, or 1912. This inconsistency reinforced the perception that Paul had deliberately obscured details of his life, even in death. The transition of leadership also stirred controversy. Just days after Paul's passing, Darwin Gross was appointed as the new Mahanta, the living Eckmaster, allegedly through spiritual guidance and a phone call from Gail. Some question the legitimacy and timing of this succession, especially given the secretive nature of Eckankar's inner workings. This here is Darwin Gross while he was the living Eckmaster. This is him a little while later while he was in court. And this is him while he was leader of Atom, which you will hear about soon. So Darwin Gross formally assumed leadership in October of 1971 and presided in Eckankar for a decade. Accounts from within Eckankar credit this period with expanding the organization's physical footprint and membership, stabilizing the movement after its founder's sudden death. Hey, Joe. His public persona blended the sacral and the musical. An army veteran and vibraphonist turned spiritual head. A juxtaposition that both intrigued and unsettled followers who felt he was relatively new to the path when elevated. Gross was born on January 3rd, 1928, in the small farming community of Denhoff, North Dakota. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. I think it's Denhoff. That's how it's spelled. The funny thing about Darwin Gross is that he was also raised in the Mennonite tradition. Now, I don't know. That could have something to do with his, following endeavors. I just found it an interesting tidbit about him. His upbringing was steeped in the quiet discipline and close-knit values of rural life. But even as a boy, he described having vivid inner experiences, dreams and visions he would later interpret as early spiritual instruction. After high school, Gross enlisted in the U.S. Army and served with the 11th Airborne Division in Japan during the post-World War II occupation. The discipline of military life contrasted sharply with the mythical pull he felt inside, but it also gave him a taste for travel and a sense of mission that would resurface in his later leadership. And that's even according to him. When he turned to civilian life, Gross trained and worked as an engineer, while also pursuing his love of music as a vibraphone player in light jazz groups. This blend of technical precision and creative expression became a hallmark of his public persona, a man equally at home with a blueprint or a melody long before he stepped onto the spiritual stage. Gross encountered the writings of Paul Twitchell in the late 1960s, which is kind of like funny to me. Like I think it's funny to me that he grew up as a man. How do you go from the army and maybe having some spiritual experiences as a kid in your dreams, right? To finding Paul Twitchell's work. It's hard to kind of figure out these things, because in this book I want to mainly go by records that we can say are for sure. And these people are not great narrators of their life, as I discuss. But there's like a little bit of a gap there that isn't really explained, and I'm just very curious. If anyone has that answer out there, please do come and speak with me. So he found Paul Twitchell in the late 1960s and began studying the mail order discourses. By November 1969, he was corresponding with Paul and launching some of the first satsang, which means classes. Oh shit, that should probably be in brackets. In the Pacific Northwest, which should also probably be capitals. Eventually, he began traveling with Paul to seminars and was given more responsibility within the movement. After Paul's death in 1971, a ceremonial worldwide seminar was made Gross the new living Eckmaster, symbolized by Paul's widow, Gail Atkinson, handing him a blue carnation and conferring the Rod of Power, a succession story widely recounted within and beyond Eckankar. Several months after the succession ceremony, Gail Atkinson, Paul's widow, and Gross married. Sources place the marriage in 1972, with a divorce roughly 5 years later. The union amplified existing tensions over legitimacy and optics within the community, contributing to departures among members who viewed the relationship as destabilizing so soon after the founder's death. And like I said, once this happened, there were some people in Eckankar that were like, oh, did they do something to Paul to like take it over? You know, those are the conspiracy theories that were being said at the time. During his leadership, Gross not only served as the spiritual head, but also held the reins of Eckankar's corporate structure. He operated with a strong emphasis on centralizing control, managing both spiritual teachings and financial operations. Gross reportedly viewed Eckankar as a vehicle for spiritual transformation, but also as a business with significant earning potential. A very big part of this book is also discussing how many of these religious cults also have started off as businesses, including Eckankar, and how all of them have a very similar pyramid structure to an MLM, such as Scientology, and how all of it is kind of based off of Amway and Scientology. It's fascinating. So it's very interesting that when Darwin Gross took over, a lot of people thought that out of all of them, he was the one that was really about making it a business. Gross retained copyrights to his own books and music and oversaw publishing and seminar revenues, which became major income streams for the organization. He gave himself a lifelong salary of $65,000 per year. They do save on buildings, renting storefronts. It is true. It is true. There's probably several Eckankar buildings in your town. This is the cult no one heard of. So this is a book about Darwin Gross, difficulties of becoming the living Eckmaster. He wrote this. David C. Lane's account of Darwin Gross, particularly in The Making of a Spiritual Movement, frames Gross's downfall as a dramatic reversal of fortune and related writings. Lane notes that Gross most likely didn't think that when he appointed Harold Klemp as living Eckmaster in 1981, Klemp would, within 2 years, excommunicate books and sue him, and then ban him for alleged business impropriety and copyright infringement. Oh no! Lane reproduces Klemp's January 1984 removal letter, which accuses Gross of letting negative forces in through lack of vigilance and discipline, causing spiritual decay, mismanaging Eckankar for self-interest, and misusing a sacred trust. The letter asserts that the inner Eckmasters no longer recognized Gross as the living Eckmaster. He was stripped of all initiations and stripped of his title and membership. Gross, in turn, rejected this verdict, insisting that the Viragi masters still recognized him and portraying the split as a political coup rather than a spiritual fall. He almost certainly did not admit to spiritual decay. He most certainly did not admit to spiritual decay. Critics claim the charges were sustained in court, while Gross's supporters argue that transcripts exonerated him and that legal battles drained his resources. The conflicting narratives hardened into two camps, each interpreting the transition as either necessary reform or a hostile takeover of the corporation and the entire cult, okay? And the teaching's direction is what it says, but the cult. Another little expert from the Google Drive that I am including in the book that may be interesting to you is that it has this document that is talks about basically David C. Lane talking with people that were very close with Gale during this time. And what they said is a key aspect for this separation of the ways, this is their email, is that it occurred after the heat started to come down on Darwin Gross of public attacks in the media and rumors about Twitchell's life and the massive amounts of plagiarism in the Eckankar writings. Gale Twitchell Gross also still legally held all copyrights to Twitchell's published and unpublished works. It is about this exact same time that an initial agreement was struck on the discourses and books by Twitchell to have those copyrights transferred to Eckankar. Later in 1982, another deal was struck for Gale to sell the remaining works to Darwin Gross for $500,000. Darwin Gross was a true believer in Twitchell. Gale Twitchell was obviously, in hindsight, withholding true facts about Twitchell and the beginnings of Eckankar from Darwin Gross. This is more likely than not creating a major friction in their relationship for some time. The courtroom became the stage where years of simmering tension erupted into open conflict. The first major legal battle unfolded in November 1985, when Darwin Gross sued Eckankar for breach of contract. He claimed he was entitled to salary and benefits under either a 1974 agreement or a 1981 revision that expanded his retirement and disability provisions. Yet in the sharp light of litigation, the lofty language of spiritual succession dissolved into the plain mechanics of board approval, ratification, and enforceability. The judge's conclusion was devastatingly straightforward. The 1974 contract had been superseded, and the 1981 contract, though drafted, had never been approved by the board and had in fact been voided by its own leadership. Board members testified they had either never seen it or had explicitly rejected it. Without a valid contract in force at the time of his termination in August 1983, Gross had no legal foundation for his claim. The dismissal was not only a legal loss, it was the official severing of any corporate recognition of his authority as living Eckmaster. The second clash, by 1989, was no longer about the fine print of employment agreements, but about erasing an era of leadership altogether. In filings, and in Darwin Gross's own lengthy rebuttal letter, which I've read all the depositions, I've gone through all of the court documents, I've read all of the letters, I have access to all of it. It was, well, this has taken me 3 years, okay? A picture emerged of Harold Klemp as not merely a successor, but a calculated usurper. Gross alleged that Klemp had concealed critical aspects of his personal history, including an attempted suicide, episodes of grandiosity, public disrobing, and an arrest. Facts Gross claimed would have disqualified him from nomination to such a high stress role had they been known at the time. In Gross's telling, the concealment was part of a broader deception. Klemp's marital solidarity presented as wholesome stability, while behind the scenes he conducted an affair with a staff member. To Gross, these were not tawdry side notes, but evidence of a personality willing to manage appearances as ruthlessly in personal life as in organizational politics. Once in power, Klemp moved quickly to consolidate control. Eckankar was restructured as a corporation sole, placing all assets and decision-making in the hands of one individual. And that individual was Harold Klemp, of course. Gross's works, books, tapes, photographs, even memorabilia from his 12-year tenure were destroyed or suppressed. Official histories were rewritten to minimize or erase his role. In perhaps the most damaging public blow, Klemp accused him before senior initiates of having stolen $2.6 million, a figure Gross contended was in fact board-approved transfers to fund his semi-retirement office in Oregon. It's like, yeah, I'm sure it was, buddy. The sheer scale of the accusation, he argued, was its strength. So implausibly brazen that members assumed it must be true. To speak well of him became a membership offense, punishable by expulsion. Which, that's crazy, you know? Thanks, Nev. Public disrobing? Streaking was popular in the 70s. I guess so. It's funny, too, because you can't find much on that. Like, the only proof that we have that this allegedly happened are these court documents claiming that he was told this. You know what I mean? So that kind of sucks. I was hoping to find something. In this light, the Eckankar disputes take on the contours of Anthony Greenwald's totalitarian ego, an entity, whether individual or institutional, that edits its own past to preserve a coherent and favorable self-image. In the legal record and in the rhetoric surrounding it, one can see the familiar hallmarks, centering the self as the indispensable actor, claiming benevolence while deflecting blame, and resisting any version of events that might disrupt the current narrative. Does that sound familiar? Like maybe somebody else that we've been watching building a cult lately? For Gross, the cost was the loss of both livelihood and legacy. For Klemp, it was the burden of sustaining a purified history in which dissenters were not simply wrong but expunged. And for Eckankar as a whole, these cases stand as a rare documented glimpse into how a high-control spiritual movement defends its story, not just against outsiders, but against its own past. So here are some, a little bit from the court document here. And it's funny because it says, they contend further that it was ratified by the continued employment, but the board of directors did not know of the contract when they agreed to or lived with the situation of continued employment by the plaintiff being Darwin Gross. And they were not even aware of the salary that he received. So they were like, I guess they claim that they didn't know, right? Like they're like, I don't really know. It is also proved in this case that the plaintiff had quit and returned and received a raise and received new duties, and no third contract was entered into. Just to show that, that was the contract thing. After his expulsion from Eckankar, Darwin Gross established ancient teachings. You may have heard of this one. Ancient Teachings of the Masters, Adam, in 1983. Rather than presenting Adam as an entirely new spiritual path, Gross framed it as an authentic continuation of Paul Twitchell's original line of teachings. In doing so, he challenged Harold Klempe's authority as the new living Eckmaster, positioning himself as the true successor. To bolster his legitimacy, Gross also continued to publish spiritual writings and teachings through his Sound of Soul imprint, cultivating the image of a spiritual custodian, preserving Paul Twitchell's legacy. And if you know anything about Paul Twitchell and Harold Klempe, you would know that Paul Twitchell plagiarized, like I said, a lot of the books for Eckankar at the start. So Harold Klempe, since he's been in power here since, the 80s, because he was in power and also a living Eckmaster as, Darwin Gross was as well. They kind of shared it for a bit. And he's been rewriting all of it to kind of erase Paul Twitchell's work and replace it with his own. I think he's also trying to erase the history of the plagiarism so that he can position himself as like the true living Eckmaster, and they can kind of avoid some of the controversy that this cult faces, right? Like many splinter groups formed after leadership disputes and high demand movements, Adam reproduced much of the same authoritarian structure and charismatic dependency found in Eckankar. Followers who left with Gross did so out of loyalty to his persona rather than any substantial doctrinal difference, because there wasn't really any. The only difference was that now it was Darwin Gross as the head, basically, instead of Harold Klempe. I mean, the belief system is almost the exact same. All of the main parts of it, it's all just a copy. In this way, Adam became less a theological alternative and more a reflection of the same cultic dynamics, contested succession, claims of exclusive authority, and the reshaping of history to preserve leadership status. This is The Adam Way of Life by Darwin Gross. It's like their Bible. It's the book that he wrote. And again, it just continues. It talks about Paul, basically, and then continues on with all of the belief systems. While Adam never achieved the size or influence of Eckankar, it did attract a devoted base that remained with Gross until his death on March 8, 2008. The exact cause of death was not publicly disclosed, but it's widely understood that he had been dealing with health issues for some time prior to his passing. Per his wishes, no formal service was held. His body was cremated, and his ashes were scattered in the Pacific Ocean near Glenadin Beach, Oregon. A quiet and symbolic farewell that aligned with the spiritual tone of his teachings. And so I have about 10 minutes of one of his speeches that I want to play for you, because I think it's important that you hear his voice.
Is control of ourselves over the lower element. In the past couple of weeks, I have become more aware of what it means for me to take control of my attention. I found that keeping my attention on you more than I used to is certainly helpful to me throughout the day. Also, I have become more aware of the choice that I have of where I want to place my attention. There are times when I can easily keep my attention on you, and other times when it is hard. But I'm realizing that I am choosing not to have my attention on you. In one way, I feel good even about this, in that I am better understanding what I am doing. I am taking the Eckankar discourses and feel I feel a real lack in my ability to interpret my dreams. I can usually remember one or two that I dream each night, but I have a hard time making much sense out of them. Although I do seem to be getting a little more control over my dreams, also I find that I bring many things I have learned from Eckankar into my dreams. I do feel that I find and I need some help with my dreams. Thanks for being with me and for this opportunity. In one breath, the young man was, was saying that she needed a little help in her dreams and didn't realize that she was getting it. Later, he did explain it. Many of us are afraid to ask the inner master for that guidance. Work in one area if you feel an inadequacy, if you feel that you've got a lot of anger and it bursts out and it's detrimental to your family or loved one or your fellow worker. Don't be afraid to ask Darji or Paulji or Sugman. How else will you get the help that you need? You must, as an individual human being, must take that first step. Now, when you ask for something, make sure you want it. The same is true when you wish for something. Make sure that you want that. That wish might come true. And when you get it, and you don't like it, can't tell you what to do with it, but you're stuck with it. You must work yourself through it, through the cycle, until you learn how to control situations that we individually involve ourselves into through our thoughts as well as actions. I know that at times, even I, in a human state of consciousness, when I let go of all of the spiritual works, in a sense, I get, like I had planned on spending the day with those that had consultations or wanted to have a consultation with me, and was not going to have any more business take place at any one of those functions I come out to. And lo and behold, I think a day or two before I got here, sorry, Darwin, we have to have a meeting. And I think around 6 o'clock when I didn't feel like coming down here, except I did know who all was here, why you're here. Some of you I haven't seen for a few years. I may not get to shake your hand personally or get a chance to talk to you personally. Don't feel bad. We can take care of any problem you might have. I'm not going to guarantee it. But if you turn it over to the inner master and let Spirit work with you, you're working with a force that's far greater than anything man knows. We have hostile countries that are trying to use psychic forces against the free world, free in a sense that allows the masses to come and go and to think, to change jobs if they choose to. We're very fortunate to be in this part of the world, or anywhere in Europe or any other country that has this freedom. If I took 10% or 12% or as much as 15% of the membership of the Eckists and asked them to concentrate on one thing, sure, we could change the world or some of those things that exist in society in this world, or maybe some of the societies in other countries. But would you and I want that burden, that karmatic load? I would not, as your spiritual guide, advise it or impress it upon you, or a select number of initiates to do such a thing. Because of that power is a source of power that the countries who are starving for power and want power don't know anything about spirit in the sense in which I'm speaking of it. You know, through these initiations in Eckankar, you're given more of it if you can handle it, and it's up to you individually. You want to take your time without pushing. And as in that song with Eckankar, let the inner master or let spirit know, or if you talk to God, like I came off of a train coming down from Boston the other day and finally arrived here at Hartford in the depot, and this colored lady was sitting on the bench there with a big emblem saying, "I talked to God this morning." And I noticed it, of course, and I kind of chuckled to myself, but I couldn't help but walk up to her and say, "Lady, you know, I talked to God myself this morning." She looked at me, "Well, that's good." But, you know, I used a different method. The uninitiated do not know, do not understand the ways of those in Eckankar. As you unfold spiritually, your life changes immensely. You don't have to change. One is not asked to change anything in their life or to give up anything. You don't have to sacrifice anything or practice austerity. If you're ready for the next step and you've requested that spiritual guidance, trust Spirit. It'll assist you. Sometimes we put up a little fight and not wanting to make that change after we've made the request because of what is taking place, what is happening, whether it's in our work function, the people we come in contact with daily on the street, or at home. This past year I've noticed quite a bit, and in some of the initiative reports to me or letters, that some individuals are trying to either use spirit because of the change of cycle and the time we live in, that the troubles and things that are happening, they're putting it off onto the cycle or on spirit, the Ek. That's wrong. Anything that is happening to any of us, we've invited it into our own world and universe.
So if you hear there, he says, anything that happens to us, you've invited it into your universe. So it's a very much like anything bad happens to you, it's because of you. You did something. And it's that way all the way through. Like from you stub your toe, oh, well, you must have done something to deserve you stubbing your toe, all the way to you were sexually assaulted, well, you must have done something to deserve that. It really does.
Now, you don't sit on your chair or on the bench in a park and do nothing, yet you can do something. Being an eckankar requires an active part on your part. Working with it, but not being of this world. Not being of this world means many things. If you stop to think about it. Yet, for those that don't understand, again, ask the inner master.
So yeah, Nev says, nice to know I invited the terrible things that happened to me as a child. And I just want to say, since they believe in the reincarnation and that you are one soul, it's very similar to Scientology in that there is no such thing as a child. Children do not exist in Scientology, Eckankar, or these such religions. It's a very dangerous way of thinking because every child, even born into these religions, since we're on like third generations of people being born into them now, unfortunately, you are actually an older person. You're a grown adult in a child's body. Therefore, you should be able to do everything that an adult can do. And this is why in Scientology, there's so much child labor and child abuse, because they don't see children as children. They're adults just borrowing a child's body to grow up in. It's just a meat suit. It's a very, very dangerous way. And then that mixed in with these belief systems, like if you were sexually assaulted, it's because you did something. You can see how all of these belief systems put together in a high control group can then create a very dangerous, dangerous situation for every single child involved. And that is what happens, unfortunately. You know? So if you said something like that, they'd be like, oh, well, you weren't really a child. So, yes, it was because of something you did in a past life. And you should be able to handle it because you're a grown person. As if grown people can just handle everything. I'm like, I've been grown for a long time. There's still some things that I can't handle. You know? I always knew I was a soul man. That's right. Now, I think that the next thing that we should do, just because I think it's so good, and maybe some of you didn't see this, is we should go through this wonderful article part by Dottie Bellamy. Hello. Thank you. And you may know this part already if you watched my past video, but it does talk about the last time that she, an ex-Eckist, and David C. Lane went to go see Darwin Gross. So it says, Gross continues to work as a spiritual master. Now, this was published in 1995 with a small group of devoted followers, many of them former Eckists. He publishes books through an organization called Be Good to Yourself, located in Las Vegas. Home study discourses and musical tapes are also available. Much of Gross's current teachings center around the easy listening jazz he performs on the Vibes. Gross's uplifting music is claimed to have miraculous healing powers. Don't worry, I have some of it for you. The program Lane and I attended at the Best Western Hanalei is called The Universal Basic of Life Through Music. It costs $35 at the door. Saturday afternoon, when we arrive at the hotel, Lane keeps disappearing into the bathroom. He and Gross have been sparring since 1977. As late as December 1993, Gross sent out a memo to all his readers defending Paul Twitchell and the corporation he started against Lane's attacks. Gross's fastidious avoidance of the copyrighted term Eckankar is noticeably awkward and circuitous. Lane has countered with a point-by-point rebuttal. When God responds, Sri Darwin Gross versus David Lane, which he's included in his new book, Gecko Came from Venus. While Lane is in the bathroom, I tried to no avail to get permission to photograph the event. Gross's young, perky assistant, Dawn, explains, frankly, there have been lawsuits. She agrees to provide us with an official photograph of Gross at the Vibes, and I leave to find Lane. He's sitting on a couch in the small lobby outside the conference room. I urge, come on, Dave, it's starting. I practically have to pull him into the concert. We take our seats among the 50 or so other seekers. Now, a lot of people make fun of me because I've also used the term seeker. And a lot of people are like, what is a seeker? Is that some new age hoopla kind of? A seeker is a term that is used for people that are looking for a higher power, a guru, the meaning of life. And so they seek out religion, they seek out theology, they seek out sociology, they dive into psychology. They try to figure out life, okay? And oftentimes it does lead a lot of people to New Age spirituality or cults. But it can also be a good thing to be a seeker. You can be a seeker of truth even, like I said, and be diving into sociology and psychology and neurophysiology and stuff. Like me, I would consider myself a seeker. That's probably why I ended up in cults, you know? So we take our seats among the 50 or so other seekers, many of whom have flown in for the event. Dawn is finishing an applied kinesiology demonstration of the power of Gross's music. A volunteer raises one arm straight out to the side, and Dawn easily pushes it down. Then she asks him to think about Gross's music as he again holds out his arm. Not play it, not sing it himself, just think of it. This time, the arm doesn't budge no matter how hard she pushes down on it. See, she exclaims. We close our eyes and chant Who together for several minutes. Gross enters and takes his position behind the gold-toned vibes. Because of course it's gold, right? Remembering him in his better days, thin and attractive, I am shocked by the... I've seen him. I don't know if I could describe him as thin and attractive, but okay. I am shocked by the corpulent, aging man standing before me, coughing. He reminds me of the bloated, near-death Elvis, only fatter and older. He jokes about his Nevada cold, blaming it on the dust from the Indian burial grounds being dug up to build housing. Lane looks like he swallowed a mouse, grinning and biting his finger. Gross's movements are frail and slow as he removes his dark blue jacket to reveal a short-sleeved white shirt and tan pants, held up with wide red suspenders. What a sight. Accompanied by keyboardist and devotee Ron Kurz, Gross begins with blues in E-flat. The music is great, lethargic and soothing, the kind of music one should listen to in a cocktail lounge with an umbrella drink. Gross smiles to himself as he hits the vibes. He seems gently ecstatic, but so tired. When he finishes the song, he takes off his shoes to be closer to the keys. The atmosphere in the room is homey and protective. After a few more tunes, Gross and Kurz are joined by vocalist Kim Driggs, an attractive woman with dark shaggy hair. In a husky voice, smooth as malt whiskey, she sings, Don't blame me for falling in love with you. I'm under your spell, but how can I help it? There is a double edge to this torch song, from the way she keeps glancing affectionately over at Gross. It is the master's spell that Driggs can't be blamed for falling under. When she begins her next selection, My Funny Valentine, I lose all objectivity. Valentine's Day, my birthday, is only 3 days away. I vacantly stare at Lane's tanned, hairy legs, nostalgic for the boyfriend who played the song for me. The loss of my old loves and Gross's loss of status become merged in an ineffable sadness. After she finishes, Gross says, "She can belt one out, can't she? I hope you all had your seatbelts fastened." Even more moving is Drig's rendition of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Gross sits this one out on a rattan stool, his arms folded over his huge stomach, lost in thought. When Driggs gets to the line, "Away above the chimney tops is where you'll find me," I focus on Gross's bulbous belly and red suspenders. He looks like Santa, I think, like a fallen Santa. Lane has tears in his eyes. I lean and whisper to him, "You are so opaque." I am surprised by my cruelty. Sitting in this pathetic room with its riotously floral turquoise and purple carpet, it feels as if nobody's dreams will ever come true. I keep waiting for Gross to give a speech, but he never does. We zone out on lounge music for an hour and a half. Then Dawn walks to the front of the room and says, "That's it." I ask Lane if he's going to introduce himself. Lane shakes his head. I don't want to tweak his day. He's got his music. He's having a good time. So I walk over to Gross myself and shake his hand. "I used to be an Eckankar," I tell him. Discomfort spreads across his face as I continue. "You were the master most of the time I was in it." Holding my hand, he looks deep into my eyes and says, "I'm still the master. I always have been. I never stopped, not even for a minute. Even though they, pardon my expression, treated me like shit." As I walk away, he yells after me, "Hang in there." So, quite an interesting exchange and quite an interesting kind of last public account of like honest public account of Darwin Gross. Because obviously the people that are in Adam remember him very fondly and lovingly. You know? How anyone could spend time with a toddler and think they're old adults? I'm not sure how one thinks that, right? Me either. But it's their belief. It's their belief. So I have a song of good old Darwin Gross from right when he was in Eckankar from 1973. Most of the stuff, obviously, from Darwin Gross is going to be from the 70s, from the 80s. It's a really cool song. You guys are going to love this.
I'd like to pass on the feeling of great joy I found in Eckankar. For those who have ears to hear.
That's all of us, I think. Mr. Death.
A longing deep inside, never knowing where to hide. For one day up, the next day down. No longer am I tied to this earth world, its troubles or woe. I have no fear of death no more, since on the path of egg, greater is he that ruleth his own spirit than.
The first time I listened to this, the whole time I was waiting for it to rhyme somewhere. Like literally, I was waiting for it to rhyme somewhere. Every single cult has songs. Every single cult has songs. So much so, right? So much, even Love Has Won. It's kind of a thing over here on my channel that the cults have songs. Because of me covering the MLM cults, I've often made fun of the fact that they all release a theme song. Because all of the other cults have songs and theme songs and do music. It's very, very common. And So much so that when I was covering Love Has Won, we were laughing our asses off at it, which was then when I came across On Passive. And one of the first telltale signs to me that On Passive might be more than just a multi-level marketing scheme or pyramid scheme, it is the fact that they had so many songs. I was like, oh my God. Telltale sign.
Taketh a city, for inward rulership
That's
is
telltale.
the mastery of the masters. This too can be yours. For those at the grassroots and those in doubt who just don't understand, let your ears hear these few words. Give no thought of where you are, for the master is always with you.
Also, it's really weird hearing, like, it's weird hearing them refer to themselves as the master. And a lot of their, like, promotional materials from the 70s, it was all like, ask the master. And it just, weird vibes, don't like it.
For in soul you can be free.
We'd like to pass on the feeling of great joy we found in Eckankar. For those who have ears to hear, for we to have had a longing deep inside, never knowing where to hide, for one day up, the next day down.
No longer are we tied to this earth world.
In fact, I would suggest that Darwin Gross was the reason why, other than Hugh and a few other select songs that they were doing back in the day, they were mainly chants. He's kind of the one that brought the music, I'd argue.
His troubles a woe, sings on the path of life. Greater is he that ruleth his own spirit, and taketh a city, for inward rulership is the mastery of the masters. This too can be yours.
I love that. This ding.
For those at the grassroots and those in doubt who just don't understand, let your ears hear these few words. Give no thought of where you are, for the master is always with you. For in soul you can be free. You can be
Oh man, it'd be a bop if it wasn't about Eckankar, you know. Like Nev says, the songs aren't bad. Too bad about the cults. It's just too bad that they're always about cults. So, everyone, that was Eckankar, Darwin Gross, a story no longer told. And the reason why it's no longer told is because Harold Klemp has basically erased his entire history and is also slowly erasing all of Paul Twitchell's history of this thing, other than basically just explaining that he was the one that started it. He's replacing all of the writing so that now it's all his books that you get. You have to go through archives to find the stuff that Paul wrote now. They don't really sell them. So if you want to know more information, I am going to be releasing this hopefully in October. I am hoping. So stay tuned for that. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me to learn about Darwin Gross. That is pretty much everything that you would need to know about him in order to learn about Eckankar, the lovely cult that nobody has ever heard of, but that is definitely in your backyard. The path of spiritual control. And yes, it is just like the same path in Scientology. Like I said, This cult is basically based on, if you took Scientology and mixed it with like Hinduism, Sikhism, and Christianity, you would have Eckankar. And the thing about Eckankar is that they prey on everybody. So their whole thing is they're a religion, yeah, all right? And they get the tax exemption of being a religion, but they say you don't have to change your religion to join us. You can be whatever religion you are. You could be Christian. You could be a Buddhist. Hell, you could be atheist and come sing you. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't make a difference as long as you're doing the exercises. But if you guys know anything about religion, you know that's kind of bizarre. And some of the religions kind of contradict each other. And there are some religions that are at war with other religions. And it's like, I don't know if everyone can hold hands and sing Kumbaya in Eckankar, but that is what their goal is. Their goal is to take over the world and be the number one religion. And that way they think that they can bring everyone together all under, well, Harold Klemp right now. But on October 25th of this very year, Harold Klemp will be going to do a webinar, a seminar, it's supposed to also be online, we'll see, where he will be announcing who is going to take over Eckankar after he passes away. Because he doesn't want the same thing to happen to him as what happened to Paul Twitchell. Because, of course, Darwin Gross claimed that an Eckmaster came to him in a dream, and Gail claimed that she was also told by the Eckmasters that he was supposed to take over right after Paul died. And then she kind of did the ceremony with him, and that was it. But a lot of people, and Harold Klemp, I believe, is one of them, don't think that it was supposed to be Darwin Gross who took over, right? So because of that, I think Harold is he's getting older now. He's not looking the greatest, I'll be honest. He's looking, like I was even saying to people about a year ago, I was like, we got to finish up this research because, man, like we're going to have to start logging the next living Eckmaster soon. So I think he's hoping that he can come out in October and announce it and arrange it all and then do the ceremony himself, because technically he's supposed to be the one that passes over the rod of power, which is just like this symbolism that they give to each other at the ceremony that says, congratulations, you're in charge now. It's kind of like becoming the Pope in the Catholic Church, you know? So I definitely am hoping to finish it before that, so that will be all done. And I am still trying to figure out how to get it up to everyone. But I will, of course, let you know. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight and for getting a lovely little bedtime story and who Darwin Gross is. And it even ended in a song. So there's that. I love all of you. I hope that all of you have a fabulous, amazing rest of your night. Now, tomorrow is Thursday, and there is supposed to be a webinar. So I guess I will hopefully see you, if I am not too busy, I will hopefully see you tomorrow to talk about that webinar. If I cannot stream snipe it, I will most likely be reacting to it afterwards then. That's kind of what will happen. Either I'm going to stream snipe it and we'll have a great time stream sniping it going woo, or I am going to react. Hold on there, Gar. Rod of power, kinky. Yeah, that's what they call it. You'll be pruned. Oh no. Oh, he'll probably be erased too, most likely. I mean, we'll see. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. It's kind of funny because it's like Darwin Gross wanted to keep Paul Twitchell alive, and Harold Klemp was like, no, we don't want to keep him alive, especially with all this plagiarism controversy and stuff, basically. And so it would be kind of karma, you know, since they love karma so much and believe in it so heavily, if the next person now came in and then erased Harold. erased Harold Clem and then like brought back Paul Twitchell or even just did it themselves, it'd be some karma maybe. But have a fabulous night, everyone. I will see you tomorrow. I love all of your faces. Bye!
Queen of Karma.